I'd like to share today. It is based on Buddhist teachings. There's 4 bases of success, and this is all going to be all about achievement. So interest, enthusiasm, and zeal is the mind's attribute which goes to an object and picks it up. Energy is the application of energy and effort once there is the arousal. The third part is consideration. We think about what is wanted or needed and how to go about it. And 4 is reviewing. We look at the results of what was just done. So then we bring in judgment. Judgment is whether it was good or sour, difficult and bad, or helpful and beneficial, bitter or sweet. And so we direct the mind to a goal that's not bad or scary when the choices are guided by mindfulness, wisdom, and conducive to peacefulness and clarity. And this doesn't mean an absence of activity, but rather an attunement of the heart to this elevation, expansion, and growth before we actually do anything. This allows for also compassion for others' failures and happiness for their success, which is a big part of our achievements. And we can also stop thinking peace nullifies. Peace is like this zombie state, like it nullifies the passion. It doesn't disengage us. Actually, real peace comes from feeling clarity and spacious harmony in the midst of engagement. So when there's effort without self-obsession, it actually makes life easier because we're not as burdened by impossible standards that are egoic standards from the ego and of success, and then the subsequent feelings of emotional stress and failure when we don't meet them. So outcomes to actions provide lessons we don't need to take personally, and instead we can use them to move forward because nothing is ever a complete loss. We can always enjoy the revived freshness of mindfulness, showing that each moment is new. And there's an opportunity to keep taking responsibility without attachment or identification, because progress is really not measurable in the peak experiences as if it's long-term or So it's progress is long-term and gradual, and it's not that the peak experience as if that's the measure by which we always have to keep meeting. So the clear, unbiased exploring of what's experienced in the present allows for progress because slowly over time there's noticeable changes in clarity, acceptance, adapting, sustainability. And if we learn from the past, we're not condemned to repeat it, but we have to be present enough to reflect. What's happening now, what happened. And non-entangled clarity yields the supremely easeful participation and profound attunement, harmony with life and its present conditions versus the dissociated numbness. So we do have to open the heart to the full acceptance of reality. We can call that mindfulness. I know it says mind, but we're not thinking in the Buddhist culture that, and Buddhism does not interfere with Judaism. It's a practice, and it can be 100% applied to a Jewish lifestyle. So far everything I'm sharing applies for me in a Jewish perspective. So Buddhism is like an application of techniques. So they're just right now written in English. There's sources for all this in the Torah of how to live one's life, because this is what we're meant to do. We're supposed to be non-entangled clarity. We're supposed to stay entangled with God, with our source. And then we're supposed to be a place of peace, profound attunement and harmony with all of life's conditions. We're not supposed to escape ourselves. We're supposed to make a dwelling place for our godliness, our divinity. So this is actually a Jewish path. And the Jewish path is Buddhism gets a bad rap. Sometimes you're supposed to sit and meditate all day, but Judaism is not about that. It's about interacting with the world and staying engaged and achieving what our purpose is. So we have to open our heart to the full acceptance. Mindfulness could be like the body mind, right? Including what we think is negative. Why? Because we actually create the cause for positives by doing so. And somehow letting go of the world brings its partner attunement to the world. So we let go of the old world, pause, and the new world can come through us now. So that's actually like arriving. We call this arrival. In some circles, the more firmly established awareness is, the less we trouble ourselves with the created situations that are confusing us and those around us. We don't start coming up with, cycles that are happening that are not really happening. And being able to naturally respond appropriately with 4 virtues according to the needs of the moment requires is for the heart to be rooted in this higher knowing. We might call this the upper da'as. In Hebrew, we would say the das elyon, the higher knowledge. So the heart stays in the bigger picture, and virtues are also midos. We can cultivate traits for midos, they're traits to be towards the Yetzer Tov, the good will, or Yetzer Ra, which is more like you would say the ego will, or the separation will, or possession will, territorial will, that isn't necessarily responding to a threat, but is kind of operating from a place of that there could be one, right? And even when it's happening, there's different ways of approaching the situation. So one of them is equanimity. This is serenity, even amid turbulence. It's an ever-minded composure. It's a grace. There's loving kindness, which is radical acceptance, non-aversion, benevolence. And then there's compassion, which is gladness at others' good fortune, and sympathetic or altruistic joy, and empathy. And then finally, there's appreciation of others' suffering. And I want to get a little more into detail with the Buddhist teachings, because I think it could be helpful here for understanding why in all spiritual pathways, for example, the values are goodwill, which is to not have ill will, and compassion, which is not cruelty, no killing or abusing or objectifying or harming. And this is part of the 10 Commandments. We're not allowed to murder, or, even in the 7 Noahide laws, you're not allowed to rip a limb off an animal. And you're not allowed to objectify, which means you're not allowed to look at what other people have and say, I want their stuff. No, for them, it's different. They're looking through their eyes, through their spiritual being. The way they interact with their possessions is very different than if you would have those items. That's, for example, meditation is when, in Judaism, we're supposed to meditate on God all the time. And we say that in the Shema prayer, the oneness prayer, with all our heart, all our stuff, all our everything. And and to be fully loving, to be fully with all of us, right? The higher knowledge I talked about. But it cuts the springs of the ego's jack in the box. It's so quick, right? The delusion, the greed, and the anger. These are the 3 main ego springs. We spring with anger, spring with delusion, like those cycles I mentioned. And of course, the anger and the greed are very closely related. Like I said, the stuff, my stuff, possessions, all that. Wholesome, skillful contemplations, in Hebrew would say hispodidus. Like I spoke about hispalal, which is to pray, but really to tefillah comes from the word even the tribe of Naphtali. Really, there's more to it. When we say pray, really each one individually should think about what's really happening. But the contemplations we have could be on the fact that impermanence, like death. And we learn in Judaism that to be alive, you have to recognize what dies is not the source of life. So your body and so on, other people's bodies, even communities and so on. There's the broader community, the collective, and other things which live on past any one person, but also suffering. Suffering is temporary as well. And a non-attachment to all these things like food, sex, and sleep. In Judaism, we would say you have to say blessings before, you have to use it properly with food, and you have to use sex properly. There's special times you're allowed to, not when there's anti-nature, anti-life. And sleep, of course, we have to rest while we say prayers before and after, before we go to bed but when we wake up. And then, of course, beauty. The body's decay, it's gone in an instant. So we have to look at new ways of beauty we call hiddur mitzvah. In Judaism, we would say hiddur means beauty. We would say beauty comes and goes. We have to beautify the containers that cannot be seen. Like, we have to beautify the way we treat people. And then it could keep growing and growing, because when you just put a little lipstick on, you think you look beautiful. But when you can look at people with a beautiful eye in your eyes, beauty is in the eye of the beholder, that outlasts you, because then they keep looking that way. And then others look that way. And then karma, which we say in Hebrew, midah keneged midah, everything has an equal reaction. The one thing begets another. So aversion, anger, lust, pride, laziness, desire, conceit. These are called the negative midot. We have many laws that help us in Judaism to learn how to not do what's negative. And then there's called the middle path. We learn from the Rambam, but also it's a very Buddhist teaching that there's absolute truth, that nothing exists. And then there's conventional truth, that everything exists. And that it came to be, we have to find somewhere in the middle. It came to be and will dissolve. Everything has the source, which is the endless, infinite allness. And when we walk the middle path, we recognize we have a piece of that in us, but that everything we can interact with is substance and will fall apart. there's an eightfold path, which is like, we would say the derech. In Hebrew, you would say derech, to stay on the way. You have to have right understanding. And by right in Hebrew, we would say tzedek, which is righteous. So we would say you have to be righteous in all your ways, in your understanding, in your views, in your thoughts, in your speech, in your action, in your livelihood, in your effort, in your mindfulness. We talked about, the contemplative awareness, and in your concentration. In Hebrew, we might call concentration kavana or devekis. Effort would be, you would say sometimes you have to put effort in, like avoda. Livelihood is the parnasa. Action is like zrizos, or asiya, like this world of action. Speech is lashon. We even call it the tongue. Thought is, like I said, your devekas or your machshava. Your view is your einayim. You're supposed to guard your eyes, and your understanding is your bina. So again, I might not say every little thing about how it's Jewish, but of course, 100%, I'm advocating for a Jewish path that includes the Buddhist teachings. In ways to be able to become, the Buddhist teachings are to teach that we all have a Buddha in us. What we say in Judaism, we have our neshama in us. We have a piece of Hashem in us. And this is for it to be skillful conduct, wisdom, and concentration at all times. It's possible. And with the three wisdoms, I spoke of wisdom, the three wisdoms, and we'd say in Judaism, we say we have two wings. We have the wings of the good deeds and the wings of the learning the Torah. And, charity and good deeds. So we would say wisdom and concentration in Buddhism is also considered the mindfulness. Like the devekas is to constantly keep on doing the avoda, to keep on being devoted on one side to doing good and giving and sharing and being good in the world and in action, and in the other side in the obsessions of truth and in using this compulsive nature and the obsessive nature for the best possible truthfulness, keep focusing on the light. And so we have three types of wisdoms here. We have knowledge and understanding, and we have investigation. So there's intellectual, which is knowledge and understanding. Then there's investigation, which is reflected and applied. And then there's insightful, which is the integrated. And we have a house metaphor of the eightfold path, which I mentioned is for the wisdom, the concentration, and skillful conduct. So wisdom is how you conduct yourself. Skillful conduct is how you conduct yourself with skills in the world with others. Concentration is your ability to maintain the focus on the right parts. And wisdom is integrating, reflecting, applying, and understanding and knowing. So investigating and seeing, and investigation is in your vestments and in your intellect. So we would say chachma, bina, and das. And very much applies to this. The das is the integrated, the investigation is like bina, and the intellectual is the knowledge, the understanding, the chachma. So we have and then the dvekas, the concentration, the kavana, and then the skillful conduct is your midos, is your actions. So maintaining wisdom is achieved by making sure there aren't leaks in the roof and by protecting the indwelling sufficiently. So guilt, worry, remorse, and fear wash away happiness like a flood against the building if the foundation is not securely established in skillful conduct. So the construction, the framework, is the concentration that can hopefully withstand the winds of change that happen. This is the 8 worldly winds of impermanence. I mentioned a few times, so we could say praise, too much praise, like false praise, blaming, painting others or painting ourselves, too much pleasure, ill repute, which is like getting a bad name for yourself, like from how you conduct yourself, gaining, losing, like gaining stuff, losing stuff. We say the word Yosef, Asaf, I just learned today. Asaf means take away, and Yosef means to add. So it's like, it could be good or bad, right? Depending on your, and then fame, of course, a lot of people chase it, but it corrupts and ruins the skillful conduct, wisdom, and concentration. So we might lead in here through acceptance, as all of this would say a Jew is to accept the yoke of heaven. Suffering is pain times resistance. The less resistance you have, the less suffering you will have, because you cannot resist your pain. But the more you try to, the more you use your energy up instead of feeling through. So healing through meditation is a way we can know that God is the healer of healers, the queen of all queens, the king of all kings, and the bubbles from the subconscious releases that were repressed during the meditation. The unconsciously occurring mental, emotional states get disturbed, scratched by the value changing the pressure of internal reactions during the meditation, the worst fears can actually then become resolved. And also the deepest insecurities and self-loathings, and we can ride out even the most uncomfortable sensations without being broken or destroyed. With that, I'll leave this. I'm going to do a meditation now, and I recommend you spend some time, set a timer, do a meditation. Let all this integrate during the meditation. And it's also a Jewish holiday. It's Passover. It's called the Intermediate Days, and we walk the middle path, so may it be for all of us. It's also the counting of the Omer, and today, last night, was Tiferet B'Chesed, which is beauty inside of loving kindness. And so all of this really matches in our intentions, our focus, our mindfulness, our rightness, and our understanding, and in our livelihood, in our living. Be well.